Hey everyone, this is DZ Maven, and it's time for another Gunpla review. Now I know some of you have been patiently waiting in the month of November for me to get to this review, and now it's time. Finally, it's time to review the Master Grade Guntank. And here it is, all put together and assembled and ready to rock. Let me get this guy spinning around here for you. And let's talk a little bit about this guy here. So, this is one of those Master Grade kits I've been kind of wanting to get for a while, like I mentioned back in my unboxing. And now I got it, finally worked on it, and put it together. So, did I actually like this kit? Some parts of it I liked, other parts I did not like about this kit here. But, I want to talk about the good things on this kit, the things that kind of impressed me about this kit here. It's not your typical Master Grade build, so it is a little different from, you know, the typical Gundam mobile suit building experience. So, because there's no legs on this thing, a lot of it is just giant pieces, especially on the lower half body of this thing. Upper body parts are very plain and very simple. They don't really have a lot of interesting look to them. As you can see, these are probably the simplest looking arms on any mobile suit around you can find here, but I mean, there's not even any hands on this thing to detail or work with or anything on here. So there's no hands, there's no legs, there's no hip area. Well, there kind of is a hip waist on this thing, but it's not really a very functional waist. I'll probably get to that here in a moment here. And then you have the tread system. The tread system on this thing, Bandai put a lot of detail into the whole tank tread system on this kit here. Maybe a little too much. It looks really great when it's all done, but let me tell you, it takes a long time to put these treads together and detail them up, especially if you're trying to detail them up. If you're not going to do any panel lining on them, you can probably just slap them together real easily, but I like to do some panel lining, and I had to panel line these things, and you have to do every single piece of tread. You need a lot of patience for this kit here. That's something I kind of want to make clear. I wouldn't call this an especially fun build. It's a very nice kit once it's all put together and everything, but you really do have to have some patience for this kit. So, but as you can see here, spinning around here, looks pretty nice. Now, in lieu of having lots of interesting accessories and weapons for this kit, Bandai decided to pack this thing full of gimmicks, and that's kind of what this Master Grade kit is. It's a gimmick kit. It's full of gimmicks here. So let's start talking about what some of these gimmicks are here. So let me turn this off and we will take a closer look at this Guntank here. Alright, so up close here you get a little bit of a closer look at the Guntank here. As you probably noticed, I did not use the markings on this kit here. I did use some of the ones on the inside details of the tank treads. You can probably see that in some of the photos. I'll try and show you a little bit here on video here, but it's probably going to be kind of hard to see. It's very minor stuff though. But I decided not to use the markings on this kit here just to kind of keep it looking in the same sort of aesthetic to my Master Grade Gundam 2.0. So I think they'll probably look pretty good next to each other here. But we'll start from the top here. Let's talk about some basic points of articulation here before we get too much into the gimmicks here. See the main cannons here. They can go up and down. They can go down about that far here, and they can go up about that much here. There is a little bit of side-to-side movement on these cannons here. Not a whole lot here. That's about that much here. The head can move up and down. It can move up pretty well here. Down, not so much here. It can turn side to side, but it's not going to go too far because those cannons are right next to it, so there's not a whole lot of range in the head here, but it probably doesn't really need it. On these arms here, arms can go up and around like that. The way these arms are designed, they can kind of move up 90 degrees like so. That's about as far as they're going to go. There's a rotation joint right here in the arm. And these elbows here. Elbows are a little interesting on this kit here. I'm going to try and show it with the other arm here. Now, there's actually sort of a double joint in the arm here. You have this one joint like this here, which is I guess your standard joint here. But there's also another joint in here. If you have to kind of pull the arm out a little bit like that, And there's an additional joint in here that allows the arm to bend 90 degrees. Pretty cool here. Only problem is it kind of gets kind of kinked up in a little bit of a weird angle if you don't put it back in. So you have to kind of push that back into the arm like so here. Now one gimmick I can show off right here, right now, while I have the arm out, is the simulated barrel firing system on here. You basically have to spin this part, just turn it around, and you'll basically simulate the firing of the little small missile launcher here. Pretty cool. Pretty nice. Nice little gimmick there. I have heard some people had some issues with this front piece coming off easily. And I have to say, I really have not experienced that with my kit here. Maybe people did not push it in all the way or something, but on mine's, it's on there. It's not coming off. So I guess you just have to kind of pay attention to how you put that on. And you push it in all the way, it should stay on without any problems here. Like, they're on pretty well on mine. They're not coming off. So, I mean, I probably could pull them off if I did use more force on them, but they're secure on there. So moving on down to the torso here. Now there is a opening. There's a couple of things on this torso here I'll talk about here, but probably before I get to that, let's talk about the head here. I'm going to head again here. I'm going to pull this out. The head will come right out. There is an LED mechanism light inside the head here. And this is probably one of the more interesting gimmicks here. Make sure this is on. Sometimes these LEDs do not like to come on properly. And all right, now I got the LED on. Probably something I really do want to mention. Sometimes I do find Bandai's LED things to be very finicky. Sometimes they just like to stop working for whatever reason. I don't know why. Then I gotta mess around with it to get it working again. But as you can see here, there are some little eyes on the Guntank here that can light up. Nice little green. In addition, there is the cockpit panel in the head here that lights up some nice little detail. That is a sticker marking that just kind of goes on top of a clear piece right there. And as far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of any other Gunpla kit that actually does anything like this with a light up cockpit detail. I think this looks really, really cool in the Guntank, and I think this is a really nice little gimmick that this kit has. While I got this out here, I will show you that the hatch here will open up like so. Yeah, Mr. Hayato is in the cockpit there, ready to take command of the Guntank. Probably while this out, there's also a little extra piece here that can go inside the cockpit shell here, which is this piece right here. This is kind of an optional piece here that goes inside the canopy, I guess to provide some extra frame support or protection to the cockpit of the Guntank. I had it in there a little bit, tried to see what it looked like, and I gotta say I kind of prefer it without this piece in here because you can't really see the pilot figure too well with this in there, so I just kind of leave it out. But it's up to you if you want to have this in there or not. It's a nice little thing to have if you want to use it, but I personally prefer not to have this in the cockpit of the Guntank. Alright, so we'll go ahead and stuck the head back in there here so we can talk about the rest of the stuff on the torso here. Now there are some little panels. These are like support panels. If I can get them out here. A little hard to get out. They come out basically like so. Basically, these are just a support brace for the cannons here, so you can have it like that. That's a nice little detail, but I mean, it's not always essential here in a piece of the skirt armor. This came off right there. I'll fix that in a second here. But pretty nice thing to have. In addition, you do get these vents on the torso. They just kind of open up like so, like that. So you can have a little bit more detail showing there. Pretty nice. They're on a little gearing mechanism here. So when you open one up, the other one opens up with it. Pretty nice. And we do have our cockpit hatch right here for the bottom part of the Guntank. As you can see, we have the core fighter inside right there with our secondary pilot. Ryu Jose is in the bottom there in the core fighter. All right, going ahead and fixed that skirt armor here. Now there is a little bit of sort of a simulated waist here on the Guntank. These are all waist armor sections kind of around in here. They're all on their own parts, just like on the, similar to what you would see on a normal master grade mobile suit figure here. And they kind of move around a little bit, but they do kind of come apart a little bit as you move the top half of the Guntank around. It's not really that big a deal, but it is a little bit finicky and fussy, I would say. Probably not entirely necessary. The Guntank can turn a little bit like this, and just to kind of be technical here, technically the Guntank is not able to do this. It's not supposed to, because that was one of the big major design flaws of the Guntank, was that the upper body could not turn at all. And that was sort of the big flaw about this thing, but I guess Bandai decided, well, we'll have a little bit of a waist rotation in it, just a little bit. But you can kind of ignore that if you don't really care about that too much. There is a little bit of a bend in the waist, just this whole red section can move back and forth a little bit, like so. So the Guntank can kind of bend over nicely if you want, like so, or lean back some more if you want. Pretty nice, pretty cool. Alright, so moving on down to the lower body of the Guntank here. This is the big chunky part of the Guntank here. There's like almost half of the kit is down here. So you have basically three sections down here. You have this main central component here in the middle here, and you have these two tank tread sections on either side here. This middle section here is pretty simple build. There's this little support piece that kind of comes out of the front here for kind of give the Guntank some extra stability on the ground. And there is this little flap that kind of opens up on the back here. I'm not entirely certain if this is for extra support or it's supposed to be like a place to have to tow extra stuff on the back or something like that. Maybe that's what it's for. Not entirely sure, but you have that. There is a little bit of detail on the bottom. You can see where the thrusters are on the bottom of the Guntank right there. And then we have the treads. Now this is probably the most tedious part of the build here, are these treads here. There's lots of repetitive parts here. I will show you that the treads do work on this. They do move. They don't have a lot of grip on any sort of surface or anything here, so you're not going to be able to roll this around too well. It's not going to roll around on the ground like that. So it's really only for simulation, I would say. But you can do that. Pretty nice. The treads are really only geared at the front gear here. This is the only one that actually really turns, but the rest of the treads, as you can see, not all of them will move because they're really not pretty well connected to the treads. So, but it's a pretty nice gimmick here. I mean, I think Bandai simulated this pretty well. In addition, there is all this simulated suspension that's on these bottom tread wheels here. It's kind of hard to show you in the video here, but they do have a little bit of springiness to them here with the plastic springs, but it's hard to see from this side of the treads here. All right, now another little gimmick here is that you can adjust the height of the treads here. This panel on the side will open up. It'll just kind of flip down. There's a little lever right here. And if you move this lever here, the treads can move down a little bit. They can move up, move down. It's not really a big height difference here, but it's kind of a discrete height difference here. But it's a pretty neat thing to have here. You can kind of lock this in place, because if you don't lock it in place, you can just press on the treads and it'll just move back down again. But you can lock it in place with the hatch here, because there are some grooves on the inside that will kind of link in with this here and kind of try and keep it from moving. So you just push that back and should be able to keep it, but you can still kind of press this in and it'll collapse the treads again. Yep. All right, so for this next part here, I just went and took the top off here so I can kind of have a better grip on this here. Now, I've seen several people that have had problems with the treads breaking and everything on them. I have noticed that the biggest chance to break them is probably when you touch them, just like that. Let me go ahead and fix that. All right, back together here. I was kind of hoping they would not break on camera while I was doing this review, but you know what? I was wrong. They broke anyway, because I didn't really touch them that much. But anyway, what I was going to say here is that there is if you don't handle these treads right when you're trying to move the tread system around, you will break these things very easily here. part of the issue is the whole tread things will come out and you can kind of adjust them. The problem is I think most of the time people try to grab it by the treads. If you grab this by the treads and try to pull them out, pull this whole thing out, you're going to break these things. There's just no way to avoid that here. I have kind of found that the best way to get these out, to adjust them here, is just kind of push it from the back here on there and just kind of push it out like so, and then kind of work your hands in there and just kind of work it out like that. That way you don't actually break the treads. So anyway, as you can see here, the treads will extend out. The whole assembly will just kind of come out on its own, sort of almost like a leg in here, almost, that will come out. And this will allow the Guntank to have probably much more dynamic posing opportunities here. So you can have the treads in kind of all sorts of little positions now, like so here. Have them angled out, you can have them angled up, you can have them way up or have them way down, however you want it. Pretty neat. This makes the Guntank look a lot more interesting when you're posing it. So I think this is a really cool thing here. And I don't know, as you can see underneath here, there is quite a lot of detail going on inside this tread system here. There's a little bit you can see right there. So if you're into doing a lot of, if you're going to paint your kit fully and do detail painting, there is a lot of opportunity inside this mechanism here. And as you're trying to put this back together here again, you do kind of want to be a little bit careful again, trying to set these back in again. Again, try to grab it from the mechanism and not the treads if you can, and just kind of work it back in again. One thing I have noticed you want to be careful about with this, don't pull these out too far. Otherwise, there's a little piston mechanism in here. You can pull it out too far, and then it comes out of the piston here, and then it won't go back in properly again. So you want to make sure you don't pull this out too far. Otherwise, you gotta try and finagle that piston back in again, which is kind of a pain in the butt to fix. And what do you know, when I was just talking about that and it happened anyway, that's a little piston right there that came out. Again, that's kind of a pain in the butt to fix here, because I gotta take this whole thing off to get to that again. So let me fix that here. Alright, and probably the last thing to really talk about here is the core fighter that comes with this kit here. This is exactly the same as the Core Fighter 2.0 that came with the Gundam 2.0. It's the exact same mold. The only real difference here is that you do get your different pilot figure for this here. And the red plastic on here is a little bit different from the plastic that's on the Gundam Core Fighter. Here's the Gundam Core Fighter right here. I don't know if you can tell the difference here, but the Gundam Core Fighter red is a little bit more muted. The one on the Guntank is more of a bold red. I believe I mentioned this in the my unboxing video, but the red plastic on the Guntank is more of the older, it feels like the older, cheaper plastic here. As you can see, one of my fins is coming off here. This kind of popped off really easily here. Get that back on. It does seem like the older red plastic that Bandai used to use in some of their kits, but it's not particularly bad, but it is prone to whitening, so I would probably take some care with cutting that off for the runners here. We do have our yellow pilot figure that goes inside here. That's the exact same deal with the Gundam 2.0 Core Fighter. Just this hatch slides back. You have that. You have a rotating cockpit there. And it folds up and you have your missiles that kind of come out here. I'm not going to do that because I've shown you that before on the Gundam review. And basically it's the same thing. Now, if you remember back in my Gundam 2.0 review, I kind of mentioned we didn't get landing gears with the Core Fighter. However, with the Guntank, we do get the landing gears for the Core Fighter. So you have that. It's just a clear piece that plugs into the bottom. And voila, now you have landing gears for the Core Fighter. Just like that. Alright, and last thing here, you do get 4 standing figures here. Kind of a extra surprise for this kit here. You get so many figures with this kit. Normally, I don't think you see this many figures with most master grade kits unless they're like generic engineers or something. I think there were some that came with some of the Gundam Mark II kit. But you do get Hayato Kobayashi, you get Ryo Huzei, you get Mr. Bright Noah, and you get Mirai Iyashima here. Again, these are all molded in yellow plastic here, so you want to paint these figures up. I would suggest probably primering these things or painting them in white primer or something, because if you're going to hand paint these on top of yellow, it's just going to kind of tint the paint a little bit and make it a little bit unnatural looking. So you will have to put some extra effort into it if you want to paint these up properly. And probably one last thing here. In case you were wondering, the basic design of the Guntank and the Gundam 2.0 are very much similarly designed here, so you can mix and match the parts if you wish and do things like this, like have the Guntank on legs or have the Gundam on tank treads. Additionally, you also have the Gym 2.0, which you can also switch parts around with too as well if you want to. Makes all sorts of crazy combinations with the Guntank if you want. It's kind of a cool thing that Bandai designed these to be interchangeable like that. So, pretty cool. Alright guys, that's going to be about it for the review of the Master Grade Guntank here. Overall, I think this is still pretty good Master Grade overall, but I do like to put a little word of caution out, but you will need patience with building this kit here. This is one of those kits that does require some patience to build here. I still think it's a pretty good kit overall. It has a lot of neat little gimmicks here, and I think Bandai tried to include all these extra gimmicks as a way to make up for not having any accessories on this thing. So I think it's pretty good here. Overall, I think this kit would be like an 8 out of 10 for me. 8 out of 10. So price-wise, this kit goes for 4,800 yen, which is about $43. It came out back in September of 2009, so it's a few years old, but it doesn't feel like it's that old. It still feels like a modern kit in many ways. The only other comparable kits I can think of is probably the high-grade Universal Century Guntank, which came out even further ago, back in the year 2000, and that's like 800 yen. Incredibly cheap, but I doubt it has the kind of gimmicks that this kit has. So, but I guess if you don't want to deal with the tediousness of building the tread system, I guess you can get the high-grade version. That's probably the only pro I can think of. Otherwise, the Master Grade Guntank is a pretty cool kit. Lots of gimmicks. Requires patience. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Leave a like below if you liked the video, and if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.